The San Francisco 49ers used them all. 7 more selections on day 3 of the NFL draft. We're breaking them down here on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love all the everydayers out there that hung out with us throughout the draft. And a lot of you, man, hope you got some fresh air a little bit on Sunday. I did, and it was much needed with how much we get holed up talking about these prospects, watching hours and hours and hours of the NFL draft. So we appreciate you. And if you're new to the show, welcome. Hang out with us every day, breaking down the San Francisco 49ers. We'll have deep dives on all of these prospects, talk about them even further than we are today. And you can subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada draft pick of the week later in the show.
Peacock, before we get started, can I give a shout out to Board Appetit for the gift that they gave us at the John Chapman 49ers Rush draft party?
Do you have it? Do you have the visual?
I have it right here.
Okay, yeah, drop it on the folks. By the way, big shout out to Board Appetit. They gave me and Croc customized cutting boards, which are awesome. Locked On 49ers, little bang bang Niner gang as well, cutting boards. And big shout out to John Chapman for the draft party he threw this weekend. We were there on Thursday night for the first round. We recorded our podcast from the green room of the party. It was a whole lot of fun, and it was nice meeting a bunch of Niners fans there and watching the draft in person and getting to do a little pod right next to Croc. We don't get to do that very often. It feels like we don't even do that. Every 2 years we get together and actually do a podcast together. So that's always fun. And so many folks we got to cut it loose a little bit and have some fun after the. Oh, dude.
So real quick, I gotta give Peacock his props. So not only did he nail the Rourke pick, he nailed CJ West, he nailed Martin, the linebacker, and obviously Michael Williams. So, I mean, how many guys talking about the draft nail 4 selections from their favorite team in their mock draft? Come on. That's only right here on Locked On 49ers, Brian Peacock.
Some of my best work. And look, some guys might have hit the first round pick, but it starts to get a little bit more difficult, And you know what? Actually, it's a little frustrating, Croc, I might have been darn near immaculate. The Buffalo Bills traded up with the Niners and selected TJ Sanders in the second round. He almost got to them. And then the Raiders went up and sniped my guy, Charles Grant, right ahead of the Niners pick 100. Now, I had Kurtis Rourke at the right pick early in the 7th round. I had Michael Williams at the right pick. I was 13 selections off. I was late round 3 on at pick 100 for CJ West. He went 113, that early 4th round pick. I had Nick Martin, linebacker, going to the 49ers in round 5. He ended up getting selected in round 3, much earlier than anyone suspected there. Honestly, hitting 4 of those 11 picks doesn't seem like a big batting average, but that's got to be my best work of mock drafting and projecting what the San Francisco 49ers are going to do in the draft, especially the Kurtis Rourke pick. So, Brian, I appreciate you bringing that up in the chat. Kurtis Rourke, I knew he was a Shanahan guy, Croc. I talked about it months ago, too. This is while the college football season was still going on. And I don't even watch that much college football. I usually wait till the springtime and the winter time when the NFL season's over to do most of my evaluations on the college prospects. But, man, Kurtis Rourke, I guess we can go backwards a little bit and we can start talking about him a little bit first. A pair of Hoosiers. Thought it was a basketball school, Croc. 2 Hoosiers, CJ West and his teammate Kurtis Rourke, end up San Francisco 49ers. Kurtis Rourke, 7th round quarterback. There's really 2 things that stood out most about Kurtis Rourke. One, a thing that Kyle Shanahan always loves is toughness in his quarterbacks. And Kurtis Rourke played through a torn ACL and took his team to the tournament, Croc. Took the Indiana Hoosiers to a college football playoff tournament. And so that's phenomenal stuff from Kurtis Rourke. And by the way, he looked a little bit like a statue in the pocket with that torn ACL. When you see him pre-torn ACL, he actually has some athletic ability. He's got a really good arm, Croc. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. he's not a guy that should be there for you in the 7th round, but he has that torn ACL. Shanahan talked about it after the draft. He might have a little bit of a red shirt year this year, but they have Brock, they have Mac Jones, and so they can, they can take on somebody who might have a red shirt year and potentially be a nice, solid, long-term backup. I don't project him to be the next Brock Purdy or anything like that, but the thing I saw in him is maybe what Kyle Shanahan saw in him too was, I think, mostly similar to a former Kyle Shanahan protege, and that is Kirk Cousins. He's got that style of play to him. And number one of all, he's got anticipation, Croc. And a lot of these quarterbacks in college, they wait to see it before they let it go. And Kurtis Rourke will throw it before his receiver breaks. He'll throw with anticipation. And he's got a nice set of tools, man. I like Kurtis Rourke. That's my favorite pick of the entire draft for the San Francisco 49ers. I love the CJ West pick, though, too, Croc.
Yeah, CJ West. So shout out to my guy Ledger Dizzable. He played for Robert Saleh, and he hit me when the CJ West pick happened. Well, actually, he hit me prior to that, then text me again when the CJ West pick happened. But he kind of had the bone to pick with the 49ers and kind of the way they addressed the first round and the second round with some of the linemen. And it wasn't that he was opposed to taking Michael Williams, but he just felt like Nolan was a better fit for what the 49ers do in the interior and what they've asked their rushers to be. So then when they kind of went back and drafted Alfred Collins, he's like, wait a minute, Alfred Collins, like that is not what they do in Robert Saleh's scheme and system. And that's not what the 49ers want really overall. They're more of a wide 9 team. They want guys that are penetrating and getting upfield right now. And he was like, well, Alfred Collins is kind of opposite of that. He stays at the line of scrimmage. Now, I will say this. Alfred Collins is a guy that Eric Crocker has been wanting the 49ers to get. All right, I've been saying for I don't know how many years now, maybe since Dexter Lawrence was drafted by the New York Giants. Hey, the 49ers need a big space eater. I don't care if he can only play 2 downs. Get me that guy that's going to eat up space. He's going to be a 2-gapper. He's going to force double teams. All right, they're not going to move him off of his spot, and he's going to be there to help stop the run. I think he's a guy that can do just that. Now, maybe you could have gotten that guy a little bit later in the draft, but the fact that, hey, Croc, don't worry about where they got him. Just worry about how they got a guy that you've been wanting the 49ers to prioritize. So I was excited about the Alfred Collins pick for that reason. Like, get somebody who's going to help stop the run. So you got 2 guys. You got 2 guys that really can stop the run and do something at the 49ers. I feel like over the last couple of years, it's kind of been struggling that. I meant to say CJ West. CJ West is more of, he's like, Doozable texted me and said, now I like that pick because he's like, this is a penetrating guy, kind of reminds him of DJ Jones and what he is. And I heard someone else say that as well. I think it was Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch kind of reference, like, has that type of ability. Now DJ Jones at like 6'1", 300 pounds was dunking a basketball. So he was kind of a freak athlete from that standpoint. But if you're just talking about like smaller, going to be able to win with leverage, quickness, he's going to be able to penetrate and get in there and get upfield. I think CJ West is a guy that the 49ers should covet his play style because he's exactly what they're looking for.
Man, and I wasn't sure they were going to go that way, and they went with 2 big old dudes in the middle of that defensive line in this draft in round 2 and round 4 too. So I think big picture, I want to talk after the break here a little bit more in detail about CJ West, what I liked about him and why I think he's a great fit for the 49ers. But big picture as the draft. So we talked a lot about, the 4 defensive picks on day 1 and 2, Croc, and then you sleep on it. You do a podcast about it. Ponder the Alfred Collins pick because I wasn't as high on Collins as some other folks. And then the Niners start day 4 or day 3 in the 4th round with CJ West. And I was like, well, they did it again? They got another one? 2 nose tackles, essentially? Like, what is going on? But it almost kind of got me excited and made me like, even though, and I'll ask you the question after the break, Croc, how they coexist and how they play together, because it would seemingly be, okay, there's 2 noses. Well, how they play together? They're very different, though. But just all of a sudden, it kind of got me pumped up. It was like, I just had that picture of Robert Saleh all jacked up on the sideline. And it was like, bully ball is back. Like, they're sending a statement. I almost got more excited about the Collins pick after the West pick because, like, it was like, I see the vision. They are not messing around, Croc. No more messing around. Whatever was just happening recently, that is not going to happen anymore. Michael Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West, and then the other two guys, while not big, in Nick Martin and Upton Stout in the third round, they're assets against the run. They will fly to the ball carrier and hit you. But the beef that they added and the no-nonsense type of players that they brought in, I started to see the vision, and it was like, you know what? You're right. I don't care about third down. Let's earn the right to rush on third down and play bully ball with those players that they drafted with the first 5 selections, all defensive players straight. So that kind of got me excited, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I do see the vision, and let's put West next to Alfred Collins and say good luck, and keep, obviously, Fred Warner and a 220-pound linebacker in Nick Martin clean if he does indeed win that weak side linebacker job. All right, let's talk more about Siegel. We've got Siegel is an interesting one. Safety. We got a couple of Jordans. Jordan Watkins, the receiver. Jordan James, the running back. I want to talk a little bit more about CJ West, get to his measurables as well. And a little kick returner in round 7 next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. By the way, you can get deals on baseball games. I had a nice deal on $27 tickets for the Giants game, and I got to see a walk-off. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see my outfit. I'm wearing my Mudcats coach pitch, my son's Little League jersey right now that I help coach and sometimes pitch. I pitched on Friday, so I didn't want to throw again the same weekend. You got to let the arm rest a little bit. So I didn't pitch today. I was the day off in the rotation. But $27 seats on Gametime to go see the San Francisco Giants and see a Little League home run in a Major League Baseball game, walk-off style. So that was awesome. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So a little bit more specifics about CJ West and who he is. 6'1", 316 pounds at the combine. 4.95 40-yard dash for a nose tackle is a really good 40-yard dash time at 316 pounds. 173 10-yard split is phenomenal. 33-inch vertical as well. So, athletic testing is really good. 28 bench press reps for a guy who's a nose tackle. And you do see penetration. You see him get up the field. You see his get off of the line of scrimmage. He's got power. And Croc, I think my favorite thing that any of the prospects that the 49ers drafted said post-draft. Did you hear the quote from CJ West when he was on with reporters? I got to find the exact wording of it because I love it. He said, quote, "My bread and butter is at the one technique. That's where I just abuse sinners, punch them in the face, and be as violent as possible." So that's what the 49ers got. And by the way, shout out to 49ers, NBC 49ers. They tweeted out a screen capture of CJ West's Instagram profile. And the first thing under his profile says, "I hate QBs." That's CJ West. But he seems like such a nice dude too. And that was the other thing. Listening to Michael Williams speak post-draft, listening to CJ West speak, listening to Alfred Collins speak, they really just seemed like high character guys that love football. And that's the part of that we don't see when we do our evaluations, Croc.
Hey, well, if that didn't make you like CJ West, all right, here's some good stuff from Brett Hollerman. All right. He tweeted this out April 3rd. He said, "Here's a fun CJ West stat for you. Indiana's average depth on tackle against A-gap runs last season was just 2.11 yards. All right, 2.11 yards. The next closest team was 2.75. He said Indiana faced only 85 such runs, which was 104th in the country, but had 29 tackles for losses or no gains. That was fourth most. So 104th in the country at those type of runs, but because of how stout and how good they were against it, they had the fourth most tackles for loss or no gains. And then he ends up with CJ West. And then the 49ers drafted him, and Brett Hollerman had this to say: Nick Bosa, Alfred Collins, CJ West, Michael Williams, you will not run the ball against the 49ers. You just can't. So the 49ers, if their goal was, hey, man, we've kind of lost our way a little bit, and we got to win on early downs, and we got to put teams in a situation where now you're kind of playing from behind the sticks, we need to go get stout against the run, as well as have some guys up front that's going to keep Fred Warner clean, that's going to keep D Winters clean, and some of these other linebackers that the 49ers have. So from that standpoint, I really like what the 49ers did. It almost makes it to where on early downs, they can just play their coverage because they have guys up front say, well, we can maybe even be a little bit lighter in the box, but if you want to run at us, go ahead, because we're so big and we're so stout up front, we can dictate how this play goes. So those guys, even if they're not the best pass rushers, they still help pass coverage because of their ability for the 49ers to be able to drop more guys in the coverage.
Love the two Hoosier picks. Let's get to the next one, the late fourth rounder. A little bit of a surprise. I put on the tape after I was late to Jordan Watkins, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. I was late to him in the process, and I didn't watch him until I saw that he was on the list of 30 visits for the San Francisco 49ers. And Croc, I nearly put him in. Remember in my mock draft, my final mock draft, I did the trade I traded 2 of the 7ths to go up and get a safety. It wasn't Siegel. It was the Cal safety who went a lot earlier than that 6th round area. But Jordan Watkins, if I kept all 3 7ths, was going to be a guy I was going to throw in there just because, need a wide receiver. And I thought he was going to be someone who's going to be a late, 6th, 7th round pick, maybe even an undrafted free agent, because he really only produced in 2 games in his entire college football career. And, but he's got a lot of tools to work with, Croc. So what did you see when you put on the tape of Jordan Watkins? Are you a little surprised that he ended up going in the 4th round?
Yeah, I didn't know much about him prior to the 49ers picking him. And, it's interesting. You watch so much film, you'll see certain plays, but not pay attention to who actually made the play. Like sometimes that happens. If I'm watching, whoever Ole Miss is playing and I'm watching the opponent and I see this guy score a touchdown, I'm like, okay, that was nice or whatever, but I'm focused on this guy. Well, he was that guy for me. So then when I went back, I'm like, oh, 11. Okay, that's the guy I saw do this, and that's the guy I saw do that. And he had a tremendous game against Arkansas, which most people will probably reference. But I think there is a misconception with him a little bit, right? He's not the biggest guy, 5'11", 196 pounds. That's decent size, but he has that 4.3 speed. All right, he's a 4.3 guy. And watching him, I think some people may think because of the size, oh, he's more of a slot guy. He's not the most twitched up. He's not like great run after catch, but he is a vertical threat. So I think he's more of an outside guy that can run some of the routes that the 49ers want ran, because he can hit those routes with speed and get to certain spots. I think he'll complement a lot of what the 49ers have. I saw some people saying, oh, well, you got Watkins and you got Jacob Cowing. Like, they're 2 different style receivers. I think they would play probably like in more of a spread offense, 2 different type of positions. So I like, man, you added a vertical threat, a guy with speed. I think he does a better job of getting off presses. I think he plays to his speed. Remember, Danny Gray. I wasn't high on Danny Gray. People are like, oh, he ran 4.3. It's like, I'm watching. He's not using the threat of his speed consistently. You watch Watkins, you do see it. Now, they spread the ball around. They threw the ball all over the field at Ole Miss. So like you said, not the most production, but just seeing how kind of his game translates to the NFL level. If the 49ers are looking for someone that could be more of a field stretcher and make teams have to play a little bit more honest and keep those safeties back a little bit, he's a guy that can definitely get on top of defenders. And their quarterback, Jackson Dart, he trusted that. There were times he would just cut back. They would go trips left, keep him on the right side. A lot of times, if you go trips left, team's going to roll their coverage that way, and they're going to single up that backside receiver. And when they did that, hey, we're going to take a shot. They would throw it downfield, and you see them outrun defenders. So, yeah, that was a guy that I liked on film and interested to see if the 49ers take advantage of the vertical speed that he has.
I misspoke earlier. I said most of his production in his college career, most of his production in his final season of his college career, 2024 at Ole Miss. A lot of it came in 2 games, but he did play a lot at Louisville and then Ole Miss for 3 years. So he was a 5th-year senior. He's been around for a long time. I think one of the things he does have over Danny Gray is a little bit more toughness at the catch point, which I think is really important, right? And so he also has a little bit of return ability as well. So hopefully there's more utility for Jordan Watkins in the 49ers offense than some of the other speed guys, because Kyle Shanahan always tends to draft one of these speed guys or bring in, a veteran that has a lot of speed, but they don't really get utilized much in his offense. And I always wonder, well, what are you doing, Shanahan, with these receivers? Because you kind of bring in a guy that he just kind of hangs out on the roster for a while and then he's gone. And then you bring in another guy that's kind of like the last guy. He's like, he's fast. And what's the utility here? How are you going to use this guy and how are you going to utilize him? So I'm interested to see if he actually gets used, and when he does, how that is. But I would imagine he, like you, Croc, probably starts off. He's probably one of the guys that Kyle Shanahan would say, oh, he can play all 3 positions. But I like him on the X better.
He's not a guy that I am just projecting to grow into having a big role for the 49ers.
Right. Which is why I was a little bit lower on the pick, and I was like, well, okay, maybe you needed a wide receiver. Did you need to force it there? Because maybe there's some other things you could have done. Even if you like this player, maybe there's another wide receiver later. Maybe he would have been there a little bit later. We can talk, I think, on another podcast very soon about some of the rankings versus consensus draft boards where the 49ers are. We talked about it before the draft. It's stayed a thing for the 49ers. Some people would call them reaches. I think in some cases I would call some players reaches, some maybe not. They're just sleepers, right? There's a difference between a reach and a sleeper, right, Doc? And I think they did find a sleeper of a safety in round 5 in Marquez Siegel. I want to talk about the other Jordan James, which was a pick I really liked. So I'm high on the 5th round for the San Francisco 49ers. They got a return man. They got an offensive lineman late. Tons of picks. Let's talk about them next. The Armada Pick of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. This week, we're highlighting the top pick from the draft on day 3 here, the one selection that truly stood out, the guy who showcased the strength and power to push the 49ers forward as we look ahead to next season. And you know what? He's going to push guards and centers forward right through the face, as he told you he was going to do on his way to the quarterbacks, which he hates. And this week's Armada clear-cut top draft pick of day 3 is got to be CJ West. I love it. I identified him before the draft. I love it even more after the draft. And when you talk about the new Nissan Armada, heavy duty, rugged, conquers the road with capability and confidence, and you can dream big and go big. That's the way I feel about CJ West. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. That's exactly what CJ West can do for the 49ers in the middle of that defensive line. It's clear that our top pick of the draft is out here, ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada. They've got the Nissan Rogue, the 2025 Nissan Pathfinder. So go find your next big adventure and shop NissanUSA.com. Jordan James, Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch did say that Frank Gore was asked. He's like, "Yeah, you like this pick, Jordan James, running back out of Oregon?" And Frank Gore's like, "Yeah, I like this pick. I like Jordan James out of the University of Oregon." And he doesn't wow you at all, Croc. 5'10", 205. He doesn't wow you physically. He doesn't wow you with tools. Doesn't wow you with speed. But the way I put it with Jordan, I keep getting the two Jordans mixed up. Jordan James, the way I put it with Jordan James is that he's the type of guy that is number 3 running back on a Kyle Shanahan roster. And by week 9, he's winning you your fantasy football league. Like that's the type of guy that Jordan James is. And even though, 5'9.5", 208, 4.51, 40-yard dash, that doesn't wow you. He's just a really good runner. He runs with toughness. He runs with vision. He runs with balance. And he's just one of those guys that is just solid. Day 3, I like Jordan James. I like what the 49ers did in round 5. By the way, I want to go to Dane Brugler's Beast real quick, Croc, because Brugler loves Jordan James. He liked him more than any other draft analyst. He had he had Jordan James. He gave Jordan James a 3rd-round grade, and in fact said he likes Jordan James more than Oregon running back Bucky Irving from last year, who was phenomenal as a rookie. And he says he thinks Jordan James is even better than Bucky Irving, who was a breakout rookie for the Buccaneers. So that's an interesting one there. And I think if, let's say Christian, look, nobody else touches the ball when Christian McCaffrey's healthy. If Christian McCaffrey gets hurt again, like, I think Jordan James could be the RB1, because I think Garendo's best role as the change of pace extra guy that does some passing down work, that hits home runs. I don't know if Garendo is that pure, like he's going to be the running back 1 and someone else is going to be the running back 2. I think he really fits well as RB2. So I could see someone like Jordan James leapfrogging him for early down carries if there was another injury, knock on wood, to Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, Michael Esparza in the chat, says this 0 fumbles for him last season. That's one of the stats right there. I mean, that's big time if for any offensive coordinator to know that this guy at the very least has really good ball security. Now, Frank Gore liking him, that's interesting, because when I was watching him, not saying he's Frank Gore, but he's not a home run hitter, right? Like I mocked Harvey to the 49ers and he was a burner. He's a guy that is more of that explosive home run hitter. Jordan James, not that, but when you just see the feet, that is kind of reminiscent of Frank Gore, just the style of run where, hey man, I got, low, I run behind my pads, a little low, good feet, watch him jump cut. It looks good. It kind of explode up. He's going to pick up 8-9 yards. Again, not the home run hitter that you would usually see the 49ers kind of go for in their drafts. But, from the line of scrimmage to about 10 yards down the field, this is a guy that has really good vision and sees and understands, where to cut back lanes and things like that, has some experience running in some of that zone stuff that the 49ers do. So Jordan James, definitely a guy that I said, I didn't expect the Niners to draft this kind of back, but I definitely can see a role for him because of how well he not just runs the ball in the vision, but he catches the ball very well at the backfield as well as pass protects.
I thought it was the right spot to attack the running back position too. If maybe I thought they went with a player too high earlier in the draft or later in the draft or whatever, I thought this was the right strategy for running back, is that 5th round area. Someone was going to fall and you were going to find a really good running back there. DJ Giddens was still on the board, who I might have liked a little bit more just because a little bit burstier runner. But man, a lot of singles and doubles keeps the chains moving is what Jordan James is. And I think they might have needed that more than another home run hitting type of running back too. So fit was probably
not sure I liked him more than Bucky Irving though. And I watched those guys. I watched forward. I don't even know why I watched so many working games, but I watched a good amount this season, watched a good amount last season. And I thought it was apparent. Obviously, Bucky Irving was the lead back and Jordan James would come in. And I mean, he was a good change of pace back, but I thought Bucky Irving was better. So I kind of disagree with Dan Bugler on that one, but that's not to knock Jordan James and what he is as a back and how him and Bucky Irving complement each other and how he can complement the backs that the 49ers have.
Siegel was a pick out of nowhere. And Croc, I don't know why nobody talked about Marquez Siegel before the draft. He was given a 5th round grade on NFL.com by Lance Zierlein. He was given a 5th round grade by Dane Brugler in The Beast. And for some reason, I never watched him. For some reason, and I kind of use the internet and Twitter as my area scouts. Is like, who do we need to watch next? Nobody brought up this dude who ran 4.3, right? The safety from Kansas State. Siegel, he's fast. He's physical. He plays downhill. And so what's not to like? 5'11", 199 with speed, Croc. What did you see when you put on the tape from Marcus Siegel?
Well, he's listed as a safety. And as soon as you put on the film, I'm looking at single high. I'm looking at too high. He's not playing there. Essentially, what I saw was a nickel. Like he played in the slot. Now, you may want to call it your star player. Some people call it, a bandit or a hornet, excuse me. But he's kind of that player that is going to play down in the box. He'll help in run support as well. He does do some coverage stuff. I didn't see a whole lot of him having to run vertically with guys. Matter of fact, their defense, and I will have to go back and do more like kind of fact checking on this, but Jalen Petrie, when he was at Baylor, where he did a lot of stuff underneath and a lot of coverage stuff in that slot, and he would kind of wall guys off, and if they were trying to come across his face, and he would run with them. I saw Siegel do those same things.
Yeah.
And he did it good. it's great to know that he has that kind of ability, but I'm definitely interested to know, what do his workouts look like? I would love to work him out. Just put him through a back pedal, put him through some kind of bailing to a single high, see what it looks like when he goes and tracks the ball. With his athleticism, which I've been clamoring for the 49ers to get a safety with high-end athleticism, he has that. So I don't doubt he can do it. Watching his feet while he was in the slot and having to mirror the movements of some of these guys on underneath routes, I thought he did a terrific job. Tackling, that was something that I felt like he did very well. I did see him one time make a business decision, and it looked like this running back put his foot in the ground and got north, and he wanted no parts of that contact, kind of stuck one hand out and kind of acted like he was leaning the other way. It was a little weird, but aside from that, he clearly was willing to throw his body around and, go in, make tackles, be a physical player. So I walked away saying, man, I like this. Now it's even more of a pick, because after the pick, we find out Malik Mustafa, he's hurt and got something going on with a previously torn ACL and like the skin graft on it. There's something wrong with it that may sit him out to potentially the middle of the season. So the 49ers knew that. I guess this happened maybe after the last game. They kind of found out about it. So it's interesting that they didn't attack the safety position with more of a veteran that is like a legit starter that you may have had to pay, $6-7 million to at least know, hey, we are really confident what we have at the safety position for this year. But if there's a young guy that can potentially come in and play in that spot, and there's some veterans the 49ers have that are like kind of journeyman type veteran safeties, but I kind of like Siegel and what he brings, and I'm curious to see what he looks like and where they play him. Is he more of a dime defensive back because he's played down and plays coverage, or they're like, nah, man, we want to see what you look like at single high and two high?
Yeah, and you didn't get to see the single high on tape, and that's what I was looking for, because when I saw a safety that had 4.37 speed, I was like, oh, here we go. Okay, must have some range in the deep middle of the field. But yeah, I think Jalen Petrie is the perfect comp for how they asked him to play, and it was more like a nickel, but not necessarily a corner nickel, more of a safety nickel. So that kind of a star position. He's a former corner, though, by the way, Croc. And according to Brugler's Beast, his 15.13 miles per hour at 5 yards during his 40-yard dash was the fastest of anybody in the combine. So he was up to full speed, 5 yards. And you can see it sometimes when he's closing on a running back and coming downhill. And there's just this, it's not always running. He's not always moving that fast, but sometimes you see it's like, oh, he got going on this play and he can run. So I'm interested to see how he develops. And I'm guessing if he's going to be a safety for the 49ers, he's going to need to play free safety. He's going to have to play some of that single high, but he can drop down in the slot, which I like a lot. And so interesting player, could be a big time sleeper. We'll see how he develops and might have to see the field because we might need the Penn State safety, Jair Brown. Thank you, Jiminy Christmas. Jair Brown might need to play strong safety if Malik Mustafa is out. Real quick note on Malik Mustafa from Nick Wagner of ESPN. The injury happened in the season finale. He was in the locker room and seemed to be okay after the day of the game. They didn't know the extent of it until later in the week. So when they spoke that week, it wasn't thought to be serious. So so once you get into the offseason, teams don't have to disclose any injury stuff. And so that's why, it was never really reported, and we didn't really hear about that. And the 49ers felt confident enough about what they already have and maybe what was later in the draft at safety, because that could have been one of those, all of a sudden someone, Eman Wari all of a sudden in round 2, and you're like, whoa, what's going on, right? And then you find out, oh, there's an ACL injury with Malik Mustafa. So hopefully it doesn't affect Malik Mustafa. And Mustafa himself replied to the middle of the season thing and was like, no, I'll be ready to go. So that's what he says about it. We'll find out. Mustafa himself, not a doctor, but he does know his own body.
You kind of touched on John Lynch alluding to kind of being sniped a little bit with some of those offensive linemen, and one that maybe in the third round. I think that's been a hot topic on social media with the 49ers fan base, not addressing offensive line sooner. And Kyle talked about, John, there were some guys that we thought we would be able to get, and people kind of jumped up in front of them. Maybe they could have been a little bit more aggressive with getting offensive linemen. We've talked a lot about it. The 49ers haven't been a team that just draft guys just to draft it because our fan base thinks that it's a need. but more so trying to find the right guys and the guys that they felt like they were going to get at a certain value in a certain range. They got snatched up right before them, and ultimately they didn't take a lineman until the 7th round. So I think also we've tried to talk a lot about it, but the 49ers offensive line is not as bad as the fan base thinks. It's a middling offensive line, so it's not like this terrible bottom half of the league. They're in the top half. They're closer to the middle, but it's not as bad as people think. I think a lot of times folks almost like they do with cornerbacks, right? If cornerback gets beat, everyone sees that and everyone remembers that. Oh, he got toasted by this guy, or he got murdered against this team, or maybe he gave up 2 catches, right? But they'll always remember the worst things about it. I think the 49ers offensive line, which is not great. I am not saying that, and I'm definitely not making excuses for them, but I think they are dealing with something that the rest of the league is dealing with. And the money that Jaylen Brown got, the money that Colton McKivitz will probably get when he's a free agent next year, I think he's going to get upwards of $20+ million per year, right? The money that Aaron Banks got as a free agent, the money that Mike McGlinchey got, that 49er fans could not get out of San Francisco fast enough. These guys are getting paid big dollars because offensive line right now around the league, the play is just not great. And the 49ers have a group where they feel like, we would love to do better if we could find better, but we're kind of comfortable with these guys starting if they have to start. And I think that's why you didn't see them really press to address the offensive line earlier.
Yeah, the big problem I have is the offensive line not being addressed is it's a big future need, and everything they had to do on the defensive line this year, they're going to force themselves into the same situation with the offensive line potentially next year with McKivitz being a free agent. Brendel's at the end. They could use some upgrades, and then Trent Williams retires. You might be looking at 4 starting offensive linemen you need next offseason. You can't do that in an offseason. So you got to get in front of that, and the Niners were not able to in this draft. Real quick, Kyle in the chat says, do you think Siegel and Stout are future safeties? I think Stout's a pure nickel, and I think Siegel is a safety.
I agree.
Bergen, return man, Connor Colby, the offensive lineman. I haven't watched Connor Colby yet. Bergen is an interesting one. We are out of time today, Crocs. We'll have to get to them later. We'll talk more about the offensive line, what that could look like, and a whole lot more, getting deep dives on all of these prospects that the 49ers drafted. Thanks for hanging with us. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.